Morning Restore Church. It's Pastor Dave, and we're out here at our little fire pit. And the reason I'm out here is we've been talking about what we're going to do. One of the things we want to do when this whole stay-at-home order is lifted, we want to go camping. We love camping, and so when nature gets opened up again, when they open nature, when the woods are free again, we're going to go back out and go camping. And there's kind of two kinds of camping. There is backpacking, where you put all your stuff and you carry your pack and all the stuff you need for however long you're going to be out there. And then there's car camping, where you load a car full of stuff, and you can take a lot more stuff and have it be more comfortable when it's all the shared gear. And so there's this idea that when you go backpacking, you're carrying your own stuff, and when you're going car camping, it's heavier. And so, for instance, like this is my stove for backpacking. Just this little, put a canister on it, and everything we cook is on this little light stove. And this is even the lightest. This is actually kind of big for some of those backpack stoves. When we go car camping, this is the stove we bring, this giant beast. And this doesn't even include the propane canisters. And so you wouldn't want to carry that backpacking. If you're going by yourself, you can't carry that. But the reality is we have these burdens, these things we need to carry. And this always reminds me of Galatians 6, verses 2 through 4. It says this: share each other's burdens, and in this way obey the law of Christ. If you think you're too important to help someone, you're only fooling yourself. You're not that important. That's in the New Living Translation. And I love that, this idea that, you know what, there's some gear, there's some things in life that are just too much. And in the context of this verse, right above it in verses 1 and 2, it's talking about helping a brother or a fellow believer, a fellow follower who has fallen into sin, who has been overcome by temptation. And in recovery work, often we call that triggers. There's something that's caused someone to slide back, to relapse back into something that they didn't want to do, something they were trying to get away from, and they're stuck. We need to share that burden. The idea is that sometimes it's just too much for one of us. This big Coleman stove is too much to carry backpacking. I wouldn't be able to carry anything else. And so we need to be willing to share the burden. When I was a youth pastor, the first time I took the guys backpacking, they all came with their gear. Some of it was their first time. And then everything else we laid out on a tarp and said, everyone take one thing. And some of it was food, some of it was the little hatchet for doing kindling, some of it was the shovel for making the latrine. And everyone had to take a piece of that communal stuff. We shared the burdens, and no one was too important to carry something, not even the youth pastor. So as we're living life in this pandemic, as we're living life in general, we need to be watching for people who need help. We need to be willing to help carry their burden. It reminds me of in World War II, the paratroopers. They had to carry just small arms and be willing to jump out of an airplane and land and fight wherever they were. And sometimes they'd come up against tanks, or they'd need artillery. And the only way they could do that was have what they called a pack howitzer. It was a 75 millimeter cannon. And they would have to divide up all the parts of it and all the ammunition amongst 20 guys. And each of them carried a little piece, and when they'd land, they'd come together and assemble it. They were much more powerful when they all took a little bit of it together instead of expecting one guy to carry the cannon himself. And so that's what we need to do. We need to be willing to help carry someone's burden. How do we do that? How do we help somebody who's struggling with a trigger or temptation or anxiety? Well, first of all, we need to be aware. We need to watch for it. See somebody who's struggling and burdened down. And then we can pray. First of all, ask Jesus, ask our Holy Spirit to do what we can't, to empower us and empower them. And then I think it's super important to listen. Ask what the burden is without guilt, without shame, and key, without advice at this point. You're not more important than you think you are. So listen. And don't just say, well, this is all you need to do. Or, just do this. Or just listen. And then practically help. Do something. Maybe they need a ride. Maybe they need a shoulder to cry on. Maybe they need comforting words. Maybe they need accountability. Maybe they need to have you take them to a 12-step group or support group or church. But do something practical. Because we all have stuff. We all have triggers. We all have burdens. And we're here in community, in the church, to share those burdens. So think about that today. I hope that's encouraging. If you have a burden you need to share, contact one of us. You can contact me through Facebook. You can contact the church. We'd love to help you. Or contact a friend. And if you know somebody who's struggling, reach out. Share their burden. God bless.